When Dr. Adams initially told me about Fulbright, I was a senior in high school and had no idea what I wanted to do. So I kind of like pushed it to the back of my brain. And then he did also tell me about the Middle Eastern Center at the University of Washington, which is where I ended up going to school for university. And there I also had a Fulbright FLTA, so from Turkey to the University of Washington as a TA in my Turkish class. So I have had multiple experiences with Fulbright Turkey before this. And so it was another like seed planted in my brain at that point. And then once I got to graduation, I was kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I've always dreamed of living in Turkey and also learning Turkish. I've always been curious about teaching, and it was great because this program is, I think, kind of the best introduction to teaching, where you get to have a casual setting to teach, to kind of see if it's something that you would be interested in. And they also, the Fulbright has helped us along the way too with different resources and stuff like that, which has been really nice.
It was my first time being in Turkey. Like I had met Turks in Germany, and that was back in the 80s. I had met Turks, and actually my German was always terrible. I took it in high school, but it was terrible. And Germans were not particularly patient with my terrible German. So they would switch to English most of the time. And the Turkish family that I met was so nice, so patient. Even with my bad German, I was trying to communicate. And that, I think, gave me a good impression of Turkey in general. And so when I began to study the Middle East, that was the country I was drawn to. But at the University of Utah, when I went back, I finished up my dissertation, but I was also a teaching assistant and a teaching fellow. So I taught there for a few years. We had full-time sort of tenure track history professors in Middle East studies. So I didn't ever teach a Middle East class while I was there, but I taught a Western civilization class, and I taught American foreign policy classes. And I've always drawn on kind of the rich experience I have of being in Turkey. Every other year now, since I've been at Charles Wright, which has been 28 years, I teach a Middle East class. Turkey always figures pretty prominently in that. I've got a class right now that is a world history class, and they're actually doing a segment on the Ottoman Empire right now. So I teach it all the time. It comes up every year in almost every class. And even when I'm just taking students on trips and talking about traveling as a American student, especially, I talk about my experiences in Turkey all the time.
Even though I knew things about Turkish culture, it was only like grazed the surface. And I also think since my family is from Istanbul, it's a different, every single part of Turkey has such different culture. So I think that has been the most shocking thing to me, is that I came in thinking I knew all about Turkey and I actually didn't know anything. So it's been really cool though to know that my culture is something that I barely know anything about and can learn so much more about, and that I have this opportunity to do that. I definitely needed to adjust. And I feel like I'm on my third month. And I think now I'm just finally feeling actually settled in. I think just this was my first time actually living somewhere outside of the US and actually outside of Washington State. So when you actually live somewhere and it's a completely different culture, there's just a lot of small things to get used to. I'm trying to think of specific things. But like learning a whole new like bureaucracy as well, like with trying to get our visas and then getting here and trying to get apartments, and if something breaks, trying to call a repairman. It's just very different. And back in the US, everything has become so much more like you can just do everything online kind of, and you don't really need to interact with people. but in Turkey you need to call everyone on the phone, and I hate calling people on the phone in English, let alone in Turkish. So that has been a big thing, is talking on the phone in Turkish. That's been something that I've had to get used to, but I'm getting better at it. And little things like that. But it is it is a challenge, but every time I do it, I feel like I accomplished something. And that's something that I've really loved, is this sense of accomplishment and growth that I can see through the challenges and the difference in culture.
I think definitely it's always given me another perspective. I'm a big advocate for people traveling and students traveling, finding ways to afford it. I was not from a background where, as a kid, we traveled very much outside of the country. But as an adult, as a college student, as a graduate student, I've committed myself to traveling a lot. And so I've been to a lot of different places. And the fact that you meet different people, get different perspectives, but also see that the world can be put together in very different ways. And it works, it functions. I think one of the problems for many Americans is they don't travel. And so they really only think the world can only be organized in this way, that the grocery stores and banks and online life is the way that the world works. And that's so far from the truth. And it's just such an awesome experience to get out of the country and see how other things are put together. And it affirms, I think, for me, everyone's humanity, the world's humanity, not just my own. But
I think just having a different perspective of the US, people have said before, you need to leave your country in order to actually understand it. And I definitely feel that happening. And it's really interesting to talk to Turkish people about America and their different perspectives on it, and tell them my perspectives on it too, and just kind of be able to see it in a different lens, I guess. So that has been really valuable and interesting for me. And I think just understanding different cultures better and the ways that we actually are very similar, even though we're two completely different cultures, there's a lot of intersection and humanity, like Dr. Adams was saying. We're all people, and we can find that bridge, I think.
Just, I'm so proud of Ella to get out there and push herself a little bit. She was always a good student. Like I said, she wasn't in my classes, but she was and her and I traveled to Mexico. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, we went to Mexico with a student group. I'm proud to have students like Ella that are so smart and so accomplished and brave to get out and look around the rest. So thank you.
Thank you. I think I'm grateful to have this experience and also have people to guide me through it too. Just having Dr. Adams to be able to share different memories with too, it's fun and very special, I think, because not many people in my community in the US have had the similar experience. So it's very cool. And I'm also just grateful for the commission too, for guiding us through this too. It's just a great journey, I think, an opportunity too.
I think applying, I would encourage anyone who has even expresses an interest, I tell them just do it, apply, because you never know whether you're going to get it or not. And the opportunity to travel and then live in a country on a day-to-day basis, not be a tourist, not kind of move through, but instead sit down and reside in a place. And like I said, I always encourage people, if you're going to travel deeply in a place rather than sort of broadly. So you want to find a place, stay there. Next month, I'm taking a group to Rome. We're only there for 8 days, but we're just staying in Rome. You could travel around and ride on the trains, but instead we're just staying in Rome and becoming kind of part of a neighborhood. And I think in Turkey, that was my best experience, was to become a neighbor for people. Sometimes, in Ankara in particular, I might be the only American they had ever talked to. And so I'd be waiting, out front for the dolmuş to come by, and I'd end up talking to some guy across the street that was, going to his job. traveling on buses out to like Yeni Mahale. There was not a lot of foreigners out there, and so finding some place to go eat lunch, and going in and then sitting down and just talking to people. So pushing out into a community is, I think, the best part of it. And so encouraging students to not just travel through places, but to become sort of temporary residents is a super important part of it.
Yeah, I would also say just apply. There's no harm in applying. And I think ask people in your community for help through your application process too. People are always more willing to help than you think. And I would also just say in America, I think there's like a big, and maybe in Turkey too, but once you graduate university, to just get into a job and immediately start building up your career and immediately work. And I think it's really valuable to do things like this. And it's 9 months. That's not that long in the grand scheme of your life, but it is a life-changing experience. And so I think like taking that jump to do something that is different than what other people are doing is valuable and should be done.
I still have up on my wall, I have my the picture of our group photo from 1994 that I've had there for 28 years, the full staff, because it was at the sort of debrief at the end of the year down in Antalya. So it was great.
So that you have the group picture from that time, right?
Sure.
Okay, would you mind sharing
Sure.
it with me? Yeah.
Yeah, I can show
and
you.
I would like to have it to add our archive. Oh, that's great.
That's so cool.
Yeah, but I will send it to you.
Yeah, that'll be great. Thank you.